He is a graduate of Catholic University of Chile Law School with a master's degree in public administration, public policy from American University, earned in 1996 with financial aid from both the Fulbright and President of Chile Scholarship for Graduate Students. He has served as the Executive Director of the Justice Studies Center of the Americas since January 2014. That organization is an international organization of the Inter-American System, whose mission is to provide technical support to the governments, judicial branches, and other actors of the regional justice systems, giving new momentums to the justice system's reform in the Americas. He is also a former member of the Board of Directors for JSCA, serving as Vice President from 2005-2006, and as President from 2007 to 2008. Served as Deputy Secretary of Justice of Chile throughout the President's latest administration, 2000 to 2006, implementing the justice procedure reform in Chile, the prison reform, the new prison concession program, passage of the new civil marriage law, civil law reform, and a series of initiatives to strengthen the judicial branch. He's passionate about technology and its uses in the field of legal reform.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaime Arellano. I'm the Executive Director of Justice Studies Center of the Americas from OAS, as I was introduced. And first of all, thanks to the Canadian Bar Association for inviting me and putting up this so interesting workshop. And thanks to the Canadian Justice Department for also sponsoring, co-sponsorship of this workshop and inviting me as well. And to IDRC, as you will see, one of our sponsors on this indices. I'm going to talk to you as fast as I can about two indexes. The index of online access to judicial information and the index of online judicial services that CEJA, that's our acronym in Spanish, Centro de Estudios de Justicia de las Américas, has put in place from some time. CEJA has the mission of accompanying, as was said, the different state members of OAS on their struggle to reform justice in the Americas. And at some point, as I was telling my partners at lunch, we came up with a big problem. We needed to establish baseline studies for the different justice systems to be able then to design new solutions for their jurisdictions. And we found that we couldn't actually access information regarding the judicial branches especially and the prosecutor's offices when JSCA was basically oriented towards criminal justice reform. So at some point we said, well, we should help transparency and we should help ourselves to make that information available. And the way we found to do it was to come up with these indices, and start ranking all the different countries and showing and publishing it in our website and showing how the different countries were ranking. So the first one is an index on online access to judicial information. We call it IACC in the Spanish acronym. This tool was created by JSCA back in 2004. The goal is to assess and compare proactive transparency levels of judicial branches in the Americas and in the public prosecutor's office as well throughout the 34 member states of OAS. So there are three indices basically: the Judicial Branch Index, the Public Prosecutor's Office's Index, and the combined index of both. In 2013, we had our 8th edition of the index, and we will be presenting our index, the next one, in 2015 with IDRC's sponsorship and funding as well. What are the relevant information categories for the judicial branch? There you can see them: the existence of an official website, judgments, the publication and updates. That means the possibility of being able to actually follow your case through internet and the update of this information on a day-to-day basis. Internal regulations and instructions, public stats, publication of court hearing schedules, etc. I'm not going to stop in the detail. But basically what we needed was information regarding judicial government, the stats on caseload and management of cases, organizational charts, conflicts and the statements of eventual conflicts of interests, budgets, etc. The same with the prosecutor's office index, basically the same categories, although of course related to what those offices do. And the weight of this two indices is as follows, 60 and 40%, basically because at the time the indices were set up, we were, of course, very centered in the criminal justice reform, first of all. That's why the prosecutor's offices show up here. And secondly, because we knew that in many Latin American countries especially, prosecutors' offices did not exist back in the 90s, or if they did, they were just starting up, so we could hardly require them to have as much information online as the judicial branches would have or should have. So the targets of IICC was open government culture, the generation of new products with available data, the improved access to justice, the reduced possibility of corruption and wrongdoing. One of the big problems in Latin America when we started back in 1999 was judicial branches not revealing their budgets, the salaries of their employees, as I said, the eventual conflicts of interests of the judicial government, and for that matter, all the different possibilities of corruption you could face there. And we would like, of course, with this index as well, increase the trust levels of citizens in courts and prosecutors, and enhance justice services by courts and prosecutors, and of course the accountability by the judicial institutions. This is the global ranking. Yesterday when we were talking with Ian, he was saying, well, how come Canada shows below in that ranking, and how Chile, where the JSCA is headquartered, shows up in this ranking from 2012, 2013. First of all, you have to think that this ranking and their categories were thought especially for Latin America in terms of the kind of information that we require those judicial branches and prosecutors' offices to put up in their websites. Secondly, they were thought especially for unitarian states, and there is a skew and a problem with, of course, what we do with the federal levels and the federal countries, which is something I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. And third, and probably most important, because the whole idea of setting up this ranking was not really to tell the countries where they ranked the first time, or the second time, or even the third time, but how to improve the transparency and the information that was up there in their websites. Latin American countries, in general, came to JSA right away after the first version of our rankings and asked what should they do to rank better in the next versions.